In the last video, I talked about the different aspects of what might happen in the future of the Riot MMO. Among other things, I talked about what Riot will bring to the table to establish a vast and vibrant open world. But what is an open world without factions, races, and different characters? Yes, the world would be not only empty, but also soulless. So many MMOs out there don't have the variety of Riot's world and those distinctive characters that were established over 10 plus years. It is easy to say that the Riot MMO will have multiple species and factions because all of that is already a given. But you have to remember, for creating a vast and vibrant MMO, you have to first take these factions and races and build up on them for many years to come. And don't get me wrong, I know that Riot has already an established world, races, factions, and so on. But it'll be different for an MMO. It's much harder to create a world that feels believable in every aspect, even if you have established lore by now. It's extremely difficult to choose the right races for the players to play, to choose factions you can play for and factions that are only AI controlled. Riot has to have a balance within that world. And that left me with an important question unanswered until now, because I looked into this and gave it a whole different perspective. I will give you the in-universe reason instead of the out-of-universe one. So, what playable species can Riot actually take and build up on them for the next 10 plus years, and thus create a world that continues to expand naturally in that MMO and gives the players a feeling of a living world? And with that, hello people of YouTube, we are Dasher. Good to have you here. We just want to say thank you again to all new subscribers, people who liked our last videos and gave feedback. We've read every comment and we truly appreciate your time. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribe to this channel. It would mean so much to us. Almost all of the known world's history involves humans in some regard, and all currently known nations on Runeterra include human populations. And in most cases, it seems that these have been founded primarily by humans. So, humans will be a playable race, there's no doubt. Of course, there are some differences because Runeterra's setting is still a fantasy one, but humans behave here mostly the same as their real-world counterpart. As I looked into the Runeterra wiki, I could find something written that is extremely similar to us humans. Quote, "The diversity has caused many cultures to flourish, many of them connecting to the land they live in and adapting to them surprisingly well." Now, some could argue that this is normal when it comes to humans. Well, yes, but this makes it so much more exciting for the Runeterra world, because when many cultures flourish, you'll find them in all of the major cities. But not only there. There's no need to pinpoint specific locations because even the Runeterra wiki says, and I quote, "Their adaptability makes them present in virtually every corner of Runeterra, having already explored almost all of the territory, even though much of it has been lost over time. So even in the smallest settlements, there will be humans." And while we are talking about it, the lore of Runeterra as of right now shows that there are different origins as well. Demacians are proud of their militaristic history. Their culture values the ideals of justice, honor, and duty. They are also an anti-magic nation. It was founded by the refugees of the Rune Wars. Over time, their cultural attitude shifted from "we will protect you from the Rune Wars" to "we will get rid of magic." But maybe this will slightly change in the upcoming MMO. Noxus, on the other hand, is a warlike society in which where anyone who proves their strength deserves to be a Noxian. The beige-colored natives of Freljord, namely Freljordians, live in a harsh and unforgiving place, where the people are born warriors who must preserve against all odds. They are proud and fiercely independent, but the tribes of the Freljord are often considered wild, rugged, and uncivilized by their neighbors of Demacia and Noxus. Ionian people, known as Ionians on the other hand, live with the magic that emanates from the earth. They are spiritualistic, balance-seeking people that are living in scattered settlements across this massive archipelago, who seek to live in harmony and balance with the world. Piltovans are the natives of Piltover, as some of you might know from the Netflix show Arcane. Piltover is Valorant's cultural center, where art, craftsmanship, trade, and innovation walk hand in hand. Its power comes not through military might, but the engines of commerce and forward thinking. Zaun, on the other hand, which by the way is also known by many of you because of Arcane, is the undercity of Piltover. While it seems run down and dirty, the denizens of Zaun, called Zaunite, collectively take great pride in themselves and their city. To them, their right to do as they please is what makes Zaun the freest city in Runeterra. As a result, the streets of Zaun are a constant hive of activity. The Empire of Shurima, on the other hand, was once a thriving civilization. But after an era of growth and prosperity, the fall of its gleaming city left the Empire in ruins. But still, the people of Shurima are merciless mercenaries and ascended warriors that don't simply survive in the harsh conditions of the Shuriman desert. They thrive on it. Many of them live in small nomadic tribes, but some of them build even small outposts around a few oases. The Buru people are a culture of the Blue Flame Isles, also known as the Serpent Isles. These people are highly respected by the inhabitants of Bilgewater. These are proud and wise people. Their knowledge of the ocean and its denizens is second to none. No ship is able to navigate the perilous straits around Bilgewater without their guidance. So, as you see, I could go on, but now you see where this idea is going, and why it is so important for me to tell you this from a different perspective. Humans, as a playable species, make the most balanced one, because humans as a race in Runeterra are capable of doing good and bad deeds, and much like in the real world, they like to stick their noses into other matters all the time. It makes the world feel more believable, because there will be always surprises, people which you can and can't trust, and as a playable race, you can decide which of these two you want to be. Stat-wise, on the other hand, humans will be the most balanced ones. They will be the jack of all trades, master of none type characters. Of course, my guess is it will be just like this only at the start of the game. But still, this is another aspect of why humans will be with absolute certainty in the game as a playable species. Some people might say, but Dasher, Riot will make it different. But remember, Riot's plan is to take established things and make them better. And with all the possibilities Riot has, there's really no point in changing the formula. Riot can just build up on what they already have. If we take Yordles into consideration, one could argue that not many Yordles are known, and it's the least known species because we know almost nothing about the Yordles' origin, what their true deal is, what their home of Bandle City actually is, and that even some of the Yordles in the game don't even have biographies. But that's exactly one big reason why I think Yordles will be in the game as a playable race. Not because little almost cute characters to play is a selling point, of course this too, but my approach to this topic is different, because the MMO will most likely take a different route. Of course, you have established lore, but Riot showed time and time again that they are willing to expand the lore in a way that no one has predicted before. So my guess is that the MMO will play either way before the stories we know by now, or way after it. Yordles, like I said earlier, are the least known species, and that's what makes them so interesting and an important choice for Riot to include them in the game. Precisely because of the unknown. Some of you guys out there know Fizz. For everyone who doesn't, he's an amphibious Yordle who dwells among the reefs surrounding Bilgewater. His age is not exactly known, but the wiki says he's over 10,000 years old, dating back to a time when there were no massive civilizations on land. Imagine playing in a different time frame, creating a Yordle and exploring the history of Yordles in some way you would never imagine. I played every Elder Scrolls title out there, and I have well over 1,000 hours in the MMO. As I look closer into this, I could draw a comparison. It's a bit like those titles, and remember, Riot takes established things and makes them better. When Skyrim was released, we had lore and story bits of other provinces, but there was no solid statement to all the unanswered questions. Elder Scrolls Online went another path, told different stories, and created some. All of this will happen with the MMO too. At least, that's my guess. Like I said in all the other videos, this is just speculation here, but I try my best to explain my thoughts as plausible as possible, because the MMO will be their biggest game, and with that, they will tell new stories, create a new way to explore Runeterra, and most importantly, give you the player a feeling of an evolving world. If we look at Riot's way to approach games, this idea isn't too far off, because Riot tries to build up on already established mechanics, and if you look at the unexplored history of the Yordles, then it almost suggests itself that the MMO could tell us a completely new story, since this unexplored species offers so many possibilities for the players. So, if we look into the wiki, there's one sentence written, quote, Opinions differ as to where exactly the home of the Yordles is to be found, though a hand of mortals claim to have traveled unseen pathways to a land of curious enchantment beyond the material realm. Riot could take this story and design something totally new. Something that isn't so far off from the original, but gives the players a way to visit and travel through Bandle City. We can even see progress in that direction with the deck addition to Legends of Runeterra, where Riot introduced 126 new cards around the Yordle theme. That shows that they are interested in expanding not only established lore pieces, but are willing to create something new for the player to explore, build up on the existing lore with new additions. Much as the humans, my guess is that the Yordles will have a mix between all classes. There will be warriors, mages, technicians, rangers, and so much more. But please, tell us your opinion too. What playable race would you like to play? Are there some species you're keen to know more about, even as a non-playable race? And, by the way, some of you already joined our Discord and discussed certain topics like this with us. We are trying our best to make it a hub for quote-unquote like-minded people, and hopefully we may welcome you there soon too. So yeah, we would love to hear feedback from you. Yes, you, in front of the monitor. Maybe there are 1 or 2 things that we can implement in our next video as well. If we look at the Vastaya culture, then we can see that the Vastaya culture is a perfectly fitting one for the Riot MMO, because the culture is rich in history. Around 10,000 years ago, the Vastaya faced a difficult task. Titans threatened Ionia, and some mortals choose to fight to protect it. With knowledge from their ancestors, these mortals drew power from their spirit realm into themselves. This granted them near immortality, potent shape-shifting powers, and the ability to use the natural world as a weapon. They are known as the Vastaya Sharai. The Titans were finally defeated, and the Vastaya Sharai were celebrated as heroes of their time. Yet, they did not consider themselves better than mortals, no. Instead, they choose to live among them as equals. The effects of the Vastaya Sharai can be seen all across Ionia, from ancient battlegrounds littered with swords to the titanic statues scattered all across the archipelago. The Vastaya Sharai are assumed to be presumably extinct, because the borders between the various realms and Runeterra eventually began to grow stable again, and with that, restoring Ionia's balance in the process. However, this also meant the borders were much thinner than they were before, and as a consequence, the Vastaya Sharai were left with greatly diminished powers. So, the ultimate fate of the various Vastaya Sharai is unknown, but it can be assumed that they are ultimately died out from old age after some point, and their descendants are known as the Vastaya, with a rich history and a tribe-like lifestyle. Now, in the current time frame, each of the Vastayan tribes originates from an individual Vastaya Sharai that had offsprings with non-Vastaya Sharai, such as humans. So you can see why this is such a big point of them being in the MMO as a playable race. Like I said earlier, they organize themselves in tribes, and because of their ancestors, the Vastaya require natural magic to thrive. They only settle in specific areas around Runeterra because this wild magic is necessary for them to breed. One could argue that this race won't be suitable for a playable race, but keep in mind, this is only for them to breed. Vastaya are known for traversing the vast lands of Runeterra. Now, no new Vastaya have been born in several mortal lifetimes, and yeah, this is bad for the Vastaya in the long run, and it mostly comes down to humans screwing with the natural flow of magic in the world. So you have a back and forth with different species, and that's what makes it so interesting. In an MMO, you need different aspects, topics people can talk and argue about. Heck, even WoW had this in the beginning with the Alliance and the Horde. As we read all of your comments, we saw this approach too. People want to be unique and represent themselves in some way, and this is fine. The exception are half Vastaya, that being those born with human and Vastayan blood. This makes half Vastaya far more mortal than normal Vastaya. Yet, certain tribes consider having children with non-Vastayan a taboo, and expel those violating the norm. And with Riot emphasizing the story and freedom aspect of the MMO, this could be an interesting factor in playing different subspecies. Imagine running around as half Vastayan, doing some quests, and out of the sudden, this opens up different dialogue and story mission objectives. One of the best arguments for this race is that they are so diverse. There are so many different species, which is due to which tribe they are descended from. Of course, we are only speculating here, but if we look at what Riot is always doing, then we have a certain idea of what could become the truth. A Vastaya and half Vastaya playable race with so many possibilities for the players to choose from. Basically a huge amount of variation, ranging from mostly human with some animal bits attached to basically animals with human intelligence. Yeah, good luck with coding this character creation. Minotaurs, on the other hand, are the complete opposite, and here we are again with an argument for a playable race, namely variation. The origin and history of the Minotaurs are unknown, but they are enormous humanoid bovines that live in great tribes in the vicinity of Piltover and Noxus. But they are also quite common in Demacia, namely because they were instrumental in building it. Literally, they were the heavy machinery that made Demacia's grand structures even possible, so Demacia had no choice but to accept them after they put in so much work. And since Demacia is almost against magic, Minotaurs fit right into it, because they are non-magical creatures. But besides the fact that they are big, tall and strong, they are also quite a noble and valorous species. If you draw a comparison to other MMOs out there, which by the way, Riot will take those as a kind of reference, then we have quite a similarity to the Char of Guild Wars 1 and 2. Some even say that they are a subspecies of the Vastaya, but this rumor was never confirmed, so take this with a grain of salt. Numerous Minotaurs have allied themselves with Noxus for various reasons. In some cases, to escape enslavement, in others because they simply want to join Noxus over remaining in their current lives. Other Minotaurs, like Alistair, were enslaved by Noxus though, so it's a bit iffy, all things considered. Like I said earlier, Minotaurs and magic have never been discussed in the same sentence. It's not unreasonable to assume they could use magic, and we just haven't seen it, but at the moment, we just don't know. And speaking of don't know, we don't know, but we would love to know your opinion about what's your favorite species or race in the Runeterra universe. Because as we read all the comments you left on our previous video, we came to the conclusion that the opinions differ, and that's awesome to see, honestly. We've also created a Discord and we would love to see you joining it. Some have already joined, so yeah, thank you for doing so by the way, and it's an awesome experience overall. So for you, this is a hub for quote-unquote like-minded people who love to exchange thoughts and ideas about the upcoming MMO, and you are more than welcome to join. So, like I said earlier, this is another big reason why they could appear in the Riot MMO, because of the uncertainty of them using magic in the future. For example, if we look at the chart from Guild Wars, we can see that they were not a playable race in Guild Wars 1, but were a playable race in Guild Wars 2. So, changing things up and building up on the lore is nothing new, and Riot will definitely do this too. Because in the current lore, there are so many differences and unexplored areas of the Minotaurs that almost everything can be a possibility as of right now. And for a playable race, that fits perfectly. Maybe in a total different time frame, so Riot could take another route and maybe give the playable race of Minotaurs magic in some shape, way or form. Because they aren't all the same, even in the current lore. Some people might think that the Minotaurs are just huge creatures as in Greek mythology, but Minotaur physiology seems to be all over the place, with females being able to be thin with obvious defining features and almost human in broader build, or huge like Alistair. We haven't seen many of these, but since there are a few that look like this, we can assume that Riot will build up on this. And here we are again, a species that has so many possibilities, features and diversity that Riot can use to make them one heck of a race for the upcoming MMO. The origin of trolls as a species is unknown, though in the Freljord ancient myths, they were described as having kings, and as such, potentially had nations of their own. Trolls seem to be these grotesque creatures that inhabit incredibly hostile environments in Runeterra. Most of these regions are likely to be next to impossible for humans to live in, and while this is true, there's much more to this than meets the eye. They mostly live in the Freljord in large tribes, but some of the trolls inhabit the so-called the Great Sigh in Shurima. These are called sand trolls, and in addition to that, there are also a few that live in Ixtal as well. But what do I mean with there's more to it? The troll kind has shown very little in the way of magical abilities. However, Trundle the Troll King was revealed to be an Iceborn. Iceborn, by the way, is an alteration to some creatures in the Freljord that grants them the ability to resist the cold and to manipulate both true ice and dark ice. And this adds a little twist to it, and another reason why Riot could make them also a playable race. The possibilities Riot could use to expand the troll lore are huge. So magic exists within that species in some form. They are capable of wielding true eyes. We don't know as of right now if the trolls of other regions have distinctive magical abilities too, but the idea isn't too far off. Because of what I've said earlier indicates strongly that trolls have the potential to learn or inherit other magical abilities, though we haven't seen that happen yet. However, it is unknown how many of the trolls are actually iceborn, but presumably more will come to light with time. But keep in mind that with rare, seemingly genetic traits like this, either every player would have to have it or none can be, to make things fair of course. The ability to use true ice weapons is a big thing, but for me as a counter-argument, Riot could easily implement this type of magic later down the line, in some form of a DLC where many people already reach a certain level and experience, or either after you hit max level. As I mentioned earlier, trolls live in incredibly hostile environments, and therefore the troll kind is known for having a hardy constitution and incredible regenerative abilities. And because of that, one could argue that this makes them the perfect warrior, almost barbaric type of race, but I tend to disagree. With the aforementioned possibility of magic, this type of race could be much more than that. And while we are talking about it, frost troll females display great differences in comparison to their male counterparts, having larger ears and generally slimmer body shapes similar to human females. So it's not only a race with many different attributes, but also a diverse one that gives the players a chance to create and develop their character in a way they want to. So trolls as a playable race also offer, not only for Riot, but also for the players, many possibilities. Different starting zones for you as a player to choose from. Are you more of a desert, ice or forest type of person? There's so much more to trolls that I even thought, oh wow, this could be awesome. And to give you one more reason for a playable race, Riot isn't bound to a specific location. They could give you, as a player, the chance to decide where you want to start. So, as some of you see, I tried my best to give you an in-universe explanation of why some of these species could fit as a playable race. Of course, all of this is speculation based on the information we currently have. And as always, it is also partly my point of view. Things can change, please keep that in mind. As I mentioned earlier, we are always curious about what you guys think. Is there some specific race or even something totally different that you would like to see in the upcoming MMO? Please tell us in the comments below, because we would love to exchange thoughts and ideas with you, because no matter how old or how young, you can always learn something new. And I guess that's what it's all about. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video and want to hear from us again, be sure to hit that subscribe button before you go, and if you click the bell icon next to it, you'll get notified every time we'll upload a new video, so you won't miss any new videos like this. As always, thank you for watching. This is Dasher, dashing into the next one. Peace.